The Sony ZV-E10 Mark I has been out for 3 years now, and is the go-to budget camera for content creators on YouTube. And in that time, this camera, the ZV-E10 Mark I, has become my main YouTube camera, since I bought it all the way back at release in September 2021. So as you can probably guess, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm using it to record this video, as well as all the example photos and videos throughout this video. But should you buy one in 2024? Well, the ZV-E10 still costs around $800 new with a lens, or $700 for just the body. Though now used prices are starting to come down quite a lot. In fact, you can pick them up on eBay for around $600 used with a lens, which is a great price for a camera with this set of features. And talking of features, this camera packs quite a lot of them. So now let's go through what the ZV-E10 has and hasn't got. So let's start with the sensor. This camera's got a 24.2 megapixel sensor, which can capture images at 6000 by 4000 pixels, and it can record video at up to 4K at 30 frames per second, though that has a 1.23 times crop, or 24 frames per second with no image crop at all. You can also record 60 frames per second at 1080p, as well as 120 frames per second for 1080p for slow-mo. Now, this sensor has been around in Sony APS-C cameras for a long time. It's pretty much the same sensor as they had in cameras all the way back in 2014. But that doesn't mean that it isn't good quality. Software improvements over the years have helped keep this sensor looking good on more modern cameras. So you don't need to worry about it being massively out of date. The image quality is very sharp for video, especially in 4K. I'm recording this video now in 4K, though on YouTube you'll likely be seeing it downscaled to 1080p. Recording video in camera at 1080p does look a little softer compared to the 4K footage. I have tried testing this before, so I would recommend that you record in 4K even if you want 1080p video in the end, and just downscale that footage to 1080p. This should help you retain the sharpness that you get when recording in 4K. Now, talking about the colour on the ZV-E10 Mark I, it is limited to 8-bit colour, which basically means a 10-bit camera has more accurate colour than an 8-bit camera. But to be honest, this isn't really anything to worry about. For 99% of users, I'd say this is easily good enough for vlogs, short films, B-roll, YouTube, and really would only be an issue if you were making something very professional and colour accurate like a feature film. And to be honest, you wouldn't ever really be using this camera for that kind of use case. So I would say in most situations, or for nearly everyone, 8-bit, you won't notice any difference. The colours still look great. The ZV-E10 also has picture profiles, which were a long-awaited addition for APS-C cameras. Picture profiles can help retain image quality that otherwise would have been lost to compression, whether that's highlights or lowlights that may have been blown out. The picture profiles available include S-Log wide dynamic range shooting, as well as other professional gamma curve options such as Cine. I've recorded this whole video in Cine 2 gamma profile, which incidentally is very good for 8-bit colour cameras. Picture profiles will make your footage look washed out and dull, which is on purpose. You then need to edit the footage to bring that colour back to what you want. Now, this is, of course, a longer process than just using no picture profile, so only use picture profiles if you're happy doing a bit of colour grading to your footage after the fact. The no picture profile settings colours still look pretty good. So that's loads of good stuff on this camera, but let's talk about one of the big negatives, and that's its rolling shutter issues. This means that moving the camera quickly can make your shots look warped and wobbly, and not in a way that you would want. And this does look really bad, to be honest. I would definitely expect better from a camera of this price. Now, it's not all bad, as it can be fixed reasonably well in editing using Sony's Catalyst Browse software, which is primarily used for stabilization, but also does a good job of fixing the rolling shutter problems. Now, I've made a full guide on how this works here. And if you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. It helps me out a lot. But back to the rolling shutter issues, over the last 3 years I really hoped this would have been fixed with a firmware update, but alas, it hasn't been. This is a real shame, as editing the video afterwards, yes, it can be fixed, but this is a slow, arduous process. You shouldn't have to do it at all. Okay, so let's talk about the lenses available on this camera. Of course, the ZV-E10 Mark I uses the E-mount lens system, which is a huge selling point as there are tons and tons of great lenses now for this system. There are options for all types of shooting, from wildlife to portraits and everything in between. Whilst the ZV-E10 usually comes with the 16 to 50mm kit lens, you can improve your shots massively by upgrading this lens. For example, for this video I'm using here, I'm using the Viltrox 23mm f1.4. This is my favourite in-studio lens, which provides a super sharp image with fantastic background blur and low light performance. And there are many other options for all of your shooting needs. I also like the Sigma 18 to 50mm f2.8, which basically I use instead of the kit lens. It's sharper and is better in low light and covers basically the same focal range. Another potential downside of this camera is that it doesn't have in-body stabilization built in, but thankfully it does have some stabilization in the form of active gyroscopic stabilization. Now this is software stabilization instead of hardware stabilization, but the results are very good, especially with smaller movements. Now the downside of this is when you do have it activated, it will crop in your frame slightly so you won't have your full shoot in front of you, compared to when it's turned off and you will have the full frame available, but then you wouldn't have the same level of stabilization. The beauty of gyroscopic image stabilization is that it can be improved further by using the Catalyst Browse software, which I mentioned earlier. It allows you to use the captured gyroscopic data in the video file to be able to stabilize shaky footage further in post-production. Again, this does come with the unfortunate downside of having to crop in your image maybe a little further, but I do find that it is great because it gives you absolute control over the amount that you want to stabilize and the amount that you want to crop, and basically the balance that you want between those two things. And it's definitely better for stabilizing some of those bigger movements. Some other great features of this camera include its great autofocus system, which is quick and accurate. It has 425 phase detection points, which makes focusing and switching focus very easy. One thing to bear in mind if you're new to cameras though, is do make sure that you're using an autofocus lens. The kit lens is one, but some of the cheaper APS-C E-mount lenses you can pick up might not be. The ZV-E10 Mark I also has a mic input, a headphone jack and a USB-C connection. Much better than the old micro USB days. And that USB-C port isn't just for charging. It can be used for live streaming, meaning you can use this camera as a webcam or for streaming on Twitch and stuff like that. This is all built into the camera without having to buy an expensive capture card or any third-party software. Completely plug and play. Now this is limited to 720p video, which is a frustrating limitation, and again, I was hoping it would have been fixed in the firmware over the last few years. Thought maybe that it would have been bumped up to at least 1080p, but to be honest, the 720p image still looks really sharp, and for how easy it is to set up, this is a reasonable trade-off. So now let's talk about photography with the ZV-E10. The ZV-E10 Mark I has a huge video focus and was marketed pretty much primarily as a vlog camera, but its photography performance is surprisingly good, with all the shoot modes you would expect from any modern Sony camera. Of course, it not having an EVF, which is an electronic viewfinder, will put a lot of photographers off, as composing your shots on the monitor can be hard work, especially in direct sunlight. You'll notice that a lot of the photos I've taken here are from a bright situation. I'd be really struggling to see the preview of the image on the screen in front of me. But if you're happy with that trade-off of size, it makes a really good travel photography camera, especially when paired with a sharp, smaller lens like the Sigma 18 to 50 I mentioned before. You can see from all the examples in this video I've taken with this camera, you can get great results for photography. I can't fully recommend this camera without talking about the elephant in the room, which is the new version of the ZV-E10, the Mark II, which is likely to be released later this year, 2024, probably in around August. This is likely to have the 26 megapixel BSI CMOS sensor which was debuted in the Sony a6700. So this is likely to be a much more up-to-date camera with a new sensor and all sorts of other new features. The price hasn't been released yet, but this is likely to be $800 without a lens, but could well feature a new kit lens rather than the 16 to 50mm we're used to, but again, that will be even more expensive. So yes, when the Mark II finally comes out, it will of course be more expensive than the Mark I, but it might be worth considering the wait, considering the big expected improvements. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on waiting for the Mark II or if you're going to go ahead with the Mark I. But overall, the ZV-E10 Mark I is a great camera still in 2024. With that video focus, I've also been pleasantly surprised by how good it is for photography. I've used it primarily for all of my videos since picking one up in 2021. It's a really great content creator's camera. For $800 with a lens, you get a lot of camera for your money. Good image quality, accurate autofocus, and 4K video, as well as useful features such as a mic port, picture profiles, and built-in live streaming. It's still very easy for me to recommend the ZV-E10 Mark I in 2024. But just keep in mind that that Mark II is just around the corner.